All right, well, I have 8 o'clock, so I'm going to let David start.
We need to get
So David, what would you like to start with?
Well, first of all, just want to welcome everyone this evening. I hope you had a nice holiday, and we're going to be continuing our.
Let me mute everybody and then we'll start again. For some reason, we're getting some feedback here. Okay, David, you have to unmute yourself and we can start again.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I just want to welcome everyone this evening. We are going to be continuing the Zoom and Tell programming through into 2023, so we're excited about that. Tonight, Jack Thompson is going to be leading the show on figural flower frogs, so that's going to be kind of a fun and exciting program where I think a lot of people are able to participate because almost every Cambridge collection has a few cool flower frogs in it somewhere. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone has to share tonight. Just want to announce that next month we're going to be doing a program. Les Hansen is going to be leading a program on the Charlton decoration. The Charlton Decorating Company bought a lot of Cambridge banks and decorated them. So we're going to be looking at that and learning about the Charlton Decorating Company. And again, if you have items in your collection that have Charlton decorations on them, or if they have decorations on them and you're just not sure who put them on there, go ahead and bring those and we can talk about those at the February meeting. I know Jack is going to be leading the program tonight, but Jack also was very involved in putting together the figural flower frog color chart that was printed in a crystal ball earlier in 2022. And so that's kind of a fun reference if you ever need to look up what colors are available in certain flower frogs. That color chart is very, very helpful. So Julie, that's all I've got so far today, and I'm looking forward to the program and seeing what people brought to share.
All right, well, thank you, David. It's always great to see everyone on Tuesday evening, and I know I'm not the one you want to see. It's normally all the glass, so I am going to let Jack take it away for the intro, and then after he finishes, we'll start the Zoom and Tell, and I'll tell you what, we'll just put someone on notice right now. We'll start with Gwinnell tonight, so she'll be on deck after Jack.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm having a little bit of problem with video. It's been going in and out, but what I'm going to do tonight is primarily going to be a screen share, and that is not affected by it. So I'm just going to turn off and just hopefully you can hear me okay. And what I wanted to do was just kind of give a little overview of what figural flower frogs are. I'm not going to get into too much detail. As David said, we did the article and the color chart in the crystal ball, and that was in the September of last year's issue. So certainly you can, if you want more detail and more information, you can reference that. And then a little farther, which is also very good, Les Hansen in December did an article in the crystal ball on reissues, which is also was very informative on other like Imperial and other companies that did use the Cambridge mold to reissue them. So that is additional information. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share screen and see if we can get this thing started here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're off and running. Flower frogs were introduced in 1926, and if some of you remember, we have no catalog information, no price lists, nothing to go by from Cambridge to tell us what was going on. Fortunately, we do have something, and that is we have advertising in the trade journals. So that really is our only reference of this. And the first thing that we find, the first image is of this, which is the one bun geisha. And this was one in peach blow. And the first ones were actually screwed into the base. And this came in also a 2-bun version. And but they weren't all one piece. This is actually screwed into the base. And that first article was actually, the image shows here in the March 29, 1926, and it was available in light emerald, amber glow, which is the same as amber, peach glow, and crystal. So you can see the 1-bun geisha there sitting in that base. The other thing that when I first started researching this, of course, I heard from the first days of collecting, people called it a flower frog. Well, where did that term come from? Turns out nobody really knows. And not just Cambridge people, but the entire glass collecting world that uses that term, but nobody really knows the origin of it. There's conjecture that, of course, you put flowers in the little holes down there at the base, and you put that in a bowl of water, and it kind of looks like maybe a frog on a lily pad or something, but nobody really knows even how long it's been in use. Cambridge used the term figure flower holders. So if you look in the catalogs or whatever, that's the term that they used consistently. Okay. Excuse me. The only other thing that's used on this base is the Buddha. Now, this Buddha actually shows up in the 27 catalog, and there were large ones and small ones, but they were bookends. But Cambridge apparently used the large one and put in that little screw thing on the bottom and was able to then put this on that same base that the 2-bun and the 1-bun geishas were in. Again, there's no documentation that they did this, but enough of them have shown up over the years that people pretty much think that that's Cambridge intended to do that. So it's funny. This picture was actually off of an eBay auction. This one showed up in Australia about a year ago, and I just took a screenshot off that eBay auction. So that's where that came from. Okay. The next picture that shows up is in 1926, and notice they have a different base. And this is what we call the number 1 base. It's attached, it's all one piece. This is the Ivory Rose Lady, and it has this beautiful iris hand-painted and enamel decor on it. They put this decor on other things too. Cambridge did on candlesticks and on a couple of comports and bowls, and I think some perfumes. And it's a really beautiful decor they did on that. But there are 3 different kinds of bases, and I just wanted to show you those 3 different kinds so you're aware of them. And this is the number 1 base. This is the number 2 base. This is the 2 Kid in peach glow, and it's frosted, but it has, notice the difference. It has a smooth side of the base, not the flutes. See, this one has tall and is fluted. That's the number 1 base. And then this is just smooth on the side. That's the number 2 base. Here's another number 2 base, and that's the Bashful Charlotte in willow blue, and it is frosted. A lot of these come frosted. They came both, unfrosted and frosted. Another one, the way they did these, this is the number 2 base as well, the smooth side, but it's an oval one. And there are 2 pieces that came with the oval base, the small drape lady and the 2 Kid. Those are the 2 pieces that came with this oval base as well. And then the 3rd base, this is the tall heron, and it has these little ribs on the side. So it's not a smooth base at all, it's the little ribs. And then the next picture shows all 3 bases together. So on the left, you have the Ivory Rose Lady with the number 1 base. In the middle is the number 2 base with the smooth sides. And then on the right is the number 3 base with the ribs. And those are the three that you see. Okay. Couple of other things real quick. I just wanted to point out, this is kind of a cool thing. This is called a bird on a stump. Oh, and that's not a Cambridge name, by the way, but I want to go back just in reference one thing. There were 5 things that Cambridge didn't have any names for. There's the Drape Lady, the Rose Lady, the Two Kid, the Mandolin Lady, and the Bashful Charlotte. Those names did not come from Cambridge. Those came from NCC. Back in the late 1970s, they had a contest to come up with names for them, and those are the ones that they gave. Cambridge, the company, only had numbers for those. So, and that brings me to this one. There's no documentation whether this was Cambridge or not, although we believe it is. So it must have just been made in 1926 and then was gone before the 27 catalog came out because there's no documentation on it or anything. But we do think it is Cambridge, but it doesn't look really all that great. The art of it is not all that great. And this is my personal conjecture, what I think happened is they redid it and then came out with the eagle. And the eagle is known to be Cambridge. That is documented, etc. So that's kind of the thought process that, but we don't really know for sure. One last thing that is really not documented to be known, but thought to be Cambridge is the Melon Boy. And again, that's a collector's term, not a Cambridge term. This is a peach blow satin one, and it's also known, I believe, in light emerald satin. So, and one last thing I wanted to show, although these are flower blocks, they're turtles, so we kind of throw them into the figure flower holder things. And this picture is courtesy of Les Hansen, and he did a wonderful job in looking at these. And because the first two here, the one on the right is early dark emerald from the teens, and as well as the ebony one next to it. You notice those have flat tops. And then the other ones have varying sizes, crown Tuscan, crystal, and there's an ebony one there and another crown Tuscan, various sizes of their domes. And that has always kind of stumped people for many years, and Les discovered that looking at the patent for how they did these things, what they did is they came out of the mold probably flat like these first two, and they would then hang them upside down and let them sag a little, and that created the dome in there. So that's just kind of a cool thing of how they did that. So, and that's all I'm going to go into as far as figure flower holders. The last thing I want to do is show ours. And again, we were talking about this a little earlier. We didn't have one in our collection for many years, and Elaine did some remodeling on the music studio, and so we figured this was a great time. And so this is our Mandolin Lady, and she is peach blow, and she is sitting in a buffalo hunt scene bowl, and that is rose dewberry because it is frosted on the inside. So that is our one figure flower holder in our collection. And that is it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing what all you are going to have tonight.
Thank you so much, Jack. A very interesting program. Thanks for giving us an update on the flower frogs and the types of bases, because I'm not a huge flower frog collector, and I really, I pay attention, but I didn't really realize the subtle variations. And certainly also thank you, Les, for showing us more about the flower frogs on the turtle blocks. Again, a very interesting fact that, you just hang them upside down, and that's why it sagged, and that's why there's different domes. And we never really think about the manufacturing aspects of some of this glass. So it's always great to hear some of how it was varied over the course of time. So thank you for that. So with that, we will start with Gwinnell, and then I will put Sally and Alan on deck, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with the drape lady, Dianthus pink. You see that?
Mhm.
And it is the smooth base. And the other one's kind of damaged, but still it's a neat piece. It's the 2 kid with the oval base. And it's also in Dianthus pink. We don't have a lot of them, but we got a couple.
Very nice. 2 kids is one of my favorites. I mean, I don't have a 2 kid, but it's on my wish list, as I could say, but I like them that you have them both in the same color. Is there a lot of variation? If you could hold them up side by side, I'm just curious between the oval base and the round base, if there's much, because of the density, if there's much color variation.
There's a little, but not a lot. The 2 kid is a little bit lighter,
Mm-hmm.
and the drape lady's a little bit darker. Could have been the time period they produced it and which batch it came out of.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Gwinnell. It's always good to kind of, I like to see the variations, and we've heard so much from Les about, you know, how thick it is and the color might change. So thank you for humoring me and showing that.
No problem.
So with that, we will move on to Sally and Alan, and then we will go to Christine, please.
Okay. Okay, go. I'm not sure. I think I've lost you.
No, we've got you.
Okay, well, on my screen, I see only you, Julie.
Oh. Well,
What?
you might have us in speaker view. That might be.
All
If
right.
you, yeah, if you go up to the very top of your
I got
screen,
gallery also.
yeah.
But I was trying to keep it in speaker view so that you could see it larger. Let me back up a little bit. We've got a collection of about 30 flower frogs of varying kinds and all the different colors. At one point, I even had an amethyst one until I found out it was mirror images, and we sold it a long time ago. Anyhow, that was when we first started collecting. The 3 that we're showing tonight are Sally's favorites. This is the Rose Lady with the #1 base. It's in ivory, and it's just about mint condition. There are no fractures or cracks or anything of that nature in it. Got it. My second one, again, is in ivory, and it's the Draped Lady with the #2 base. The Rose Lady had the #1 fluted base. This one has the smooth-sided ones. And again, this is just about mint condition. And third but not least, I think is Sally's favorite of all of them, again in ivory, is the 2906 13-inch Draped Lady with the #1 base, the fluted base. This we just got at the last convention, and we got it from Jack Peabody. And I saw a number of these at the convention. Many of them had chips and cracks. This is the most mint flower frog that we have in our entire collection. Fluted vase base. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. I'm very partial to the ivory as well, and just beautiful. I really enjoy seeing all the different shapes that you have, and certainly, you know, having ivory in both the Rose Lady, the Draped Lady, and then the larger Draped Lady is really fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, we've had a question, and we're going to save it to the end. We'll save that question, Mary, about how we use our flower frogs. So don't let me forget before we get to the end of the program. So next we will go to Christine, and after Christine, we will have Tim, please. Okay, Christine, are you there?
Here we go. So I have the two kids as well, one in satin and one, of course, in the non-satinized. This one, of course, has the oval base, and this one has the round base. So it's probably two of my favorite of the flower frogs. My other one favorite is the turtle. I actually have two, and they're almost identical. I was kind of comparing them, other than the one is in better shape than the other. And mostly, I don't know about any of you that have these, most of the damage tends to be down on the bottom here. So a little chipping here. I also wanted to show you, just in case you were curious about like other companies that made it. So here is just to kind of put them both together. Can everyone see that? So the one in my left hand is actually made by Westmoreland. So it's very cute. It's a very nice piece. It's actually in wonderful condition. But this is a Westmoreland one, and I knew it wasn't Cambridge when I bought it, but it was just so cute I couldn't resist. And then, of course, this one on this side is a Cambridge one, just to show you the comparison between them. That's all.
All right, thank you. And thank you for showing that comparison. It's always good that we have, you know, a little bit of reference, that when we're out shopping and we're looking at things, if we see something, that one did appear smaller in size.
It is smaller, and definitely it doesn't have like that. It has just more a turtle shape with the holes in it, really, to it. And it even has some of the, I don't know if you can see on the very top of it, that you see that it actually has like a turtle shell would have, the little cuts. So it has a little more detail to it in that end, whereas like the face here doesn't have hardly any detail at all, whereas the Cambridge one has wonderful detail to it. So little differences.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Christine. I appreciate that
Sure.
very much. Okay, next we have Tim, and we will put the checks on deck, please. Now that Tim has his newfound excellent connection. Oh, Tim, you're on mute. Tim, you're on mute, please. Unmute yourself.
There we go. There we go. Yay, I'm back. Okay, well, I wasn't going to do this. We grabbed a few pieces. First of all, I'll start with the Bashful Charlotte. This is in Willow Blue. Back up here, we can see this is the first time I've ever been on this end of it where I'm showing it, holding it. So we'll see if we can't do. She's a beautiful little gal. She normally sets in a Everglade bowl. This one is a 13.5-inch draped lady with a #1 base. And the thing that we love the most about light emerald is this. You grab your little black light and it just glows wonderfully. Anytime we have any company over, we grab the black light out and they go running around finding out everything that they've got that we have that'll actually fluorescent. This is a 12.5-inch draped lady, but this is with the big base. So you'll have to, somebody else going to have to tell me, well, that's a 2 or 3, or what are they calling that? Rose lady and a she's, where's my rose lady? 8 3/4. She's not very big. Light emerald, 2 frog or 2 kids. And again, they just fluorescent just beautifully. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. And it's nice to see you joining us via Zoom. And also, thank you for the reminder of how the black light really helps you identify some of those colors that it's in our mind sometimes, but we forget about it. So thank you and appreciate you guys joining and showing your collection today.
Thank you.
And next we will go to the checks, and then we will have Frank on deck, please.
So I think this may be the first flower frog we probably bought. I'm guessing, and this was years ago in Vermont. And I had seen it in the shop before, and then we went back another year. It's like, you know what, we got to have that. So this is the bird on the stump. And then I wanted to show the two. We've got a couple of the bashful Charlottes, but you see this one, the pink one leans more than the other. So this one she kind of leans over a little bit. I don't know if that was, the cooling process or what happened, but it was, like I said, she just leans a little bit more than the green one. And then the mandolin lady, and this one's of course in crystal, but I just think it's such a neat, and they're just such neat designs. It's just fun to find them. We don't have any opaques in our collection, but
Not yet.
we do have the satin heron, the larger of the two. They made the shorter heron too. We have them in crystal as well, but this one is the satin. We've got a lot of detail on the feathers, especially like on the underside. You probably can't see it well enough here, but it's really quite detailed. And then the last one I was going to show is the drape lady in blue. And this is the 13 and a half inch. This is really a heavy piece of glass. We have them in light emerald and pink as well. So we do have a few others, but I'm sure other people will probably have them as well. So that's all we brought out to share tonight.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's the first time I've seen the heron in a satin finish. And I have the tall heron as well, but it's the first time I've seen it in satin. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and always wonderful to see you. I see you had a visitor behind you. I've never seen your cat before, so I often comment on people's pets. Yes, I have pets of my own that join me. So when I see someone else's, I have to comment. So with that, we'll move on to Frank, and we will have David on deck, please.
Okay, hello guys. First one we've got is a little 8.5 inch drape lady in bluebell. And we've got an 8.5 inch in crown Tuscan. We got the bird on the stump, one in amber, one in pink.
Right there, the eagle, not the bird on the stump.
Eagle, I mean, yes. Correct. Eagle. And a 6.5 inch bashful Charlotte in moonlight or light. Can everybody see me?
Yes, you might want to hold the flower frogs a little bit further back to see all the detail, please.
Okay. Mandolin ladies in green satin and pink satin. And I know it's flower frogs, but they made her into a lamp. 2-bun geisha. You can find it. It's got a screw base. And they also made one buns. Talking about the geisha, it didn't actually screw into the base. It screwed into a metal fixture in the bottom of the base. So it was upside into the base that this screwed into. Okay, that's all I've got.
Well, thank you so much, Frank. I'm sorry that your one-headed geisha got beheaded.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's a shame. But beautiful, beautiful things that you have here. You know, I'm very jealous. I asked you to hold them back because I was drooling too much on my screen. Right now, I have a cat that thinks she's got to be part of the process, unfortunately. But beautiful, beautiful pieces. You know, very unusual. And that brings up a really good question about the lamps. We've seen, I mean, I personally have seen some lamps on the internet and so forth. How come were all the figurines made into lamps, or just some of the flower figurals made into lamps?
Well,
Does anybody have an answer for that?
as far as I know, this figural was made just the figure itself onto a radio lamp. It had a square lighted base that fit on, and I've only seen them in crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Oriental, other than that, I don't know of any that were actually made as lamps.
I can kind of chime in a little bit on this with Frank. The two bun geisha and the one bun geisha were both made into lamps. In fact, they originally from the get-go, Cambridge was marketing those directly to the lamp companies and all in the literature and everything to make those. Of course, you showed the small drape lady was made into a lamp, but then you talked about the two other that they fit in that little, or fit in the little radio base. And those are the only lamp ones that we had documented on the thing. So
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, because I know that often, you know, many of us, when we're tooling around on the internet, we often see these on eBay and so forth, where you might see a lamp of some sort. And, you know, I always, you know, I don't know enough about the lamps to really be knowledgeable. And so thank you for that information. I appreciate that. So next we have David. And then if no one else has any others to show, I know Joanne sent me several pictures, and we'll have Joanne discuss her pieces. So David?
Hi, Julie. Thank you very much. I don't collect flower frogs either, but I do have a few flower frogs. The first one I want to start out with is my 2-kid. This is the light emerald 2-kid on the oval base. And these earlier, well, almost all the flower frogs, I think if you look up inside, there's going to be a patent number for that particular flower frog. Sometimes it's a little bit more easily read than on others, depending on how new and crisp the mold was. But I kind of appreciate the oval base flower frog. They are a little bit more difficult to find, but there are so many cool bowls that these fit into. So most flower frogs are round, but not all bowls can accommodate a round flower frog. So these can really go in some of what we call the banana shaped style bowls and make for a very attractive setting. I have a second 2-kid. This was one that I was really hoping to add to the collection. And a few years ago, I was at a show in Florida, and a dealer came out and said, one of the dealers in there has an ivory 2-kid and a moonlight 2-kid for sale in the booth. And it kind of shocked me a little bit, because I never would dream that the same dealer would be carrying 2 of those at a show. So I went in, and this is the ivory flower frog that came from the one of the last San Lando depression glass shows that I was able to attend before they demolished the Civic Center. And it too has a very clear patent marking up underneath. This is a willow blue drape lady. It is in the satin finish. And all of these that I have ever seen have sold on eBay through England or Europe somewhere. And I noticed when I look on the underside here, there is no patent marking visible. They've actually ground out where the patent would be. It's still satin finished. There's a little oval about the size of a quarter where they've ground out that patent marking. And I would have to think that that would be intentional. It's not up inside. It's not completely satin like the Cambridge flower frogs. They left this unsatin when they satin finished the flower frog, but they've actually gone in and look like they took like a buffing tool, and you can see nothing of the patent pending mark. So I've never seen an oval willow blue drape lady without being satin finished, and the three that I have seen have all come through the internet through England or Europe somewhere. So kind of a neat, they were probably trying to hide the Cambridge mark underneath in some way. I have an ebony flower frog. We talked about the doming of this. This is not perfectly flat. It's got a slight dome to it. And it's just a really cool piece to have in a color. Most of them do show up in crystal, but at some point they did make a run or two of the ebony and the crown tuscanins. And we were talking about the geishas, and I thought I would demonstrate how the geisha goes together. This is the figural. It has a threaded base. This is the base itself. There are no threads in the base. That's perfectly smooth in here. It's been ground and polished on the top to give it a very nice finish. And then there is a double threaded ring. I shouldn't say double threaded. It's threaded on the inside. The threads are on the inside, and you have to kind of very carefully put these together. And once you get the threads to line up, as you turn the flower frog, the metal portion is getting tighter to the underside of the glass base. You do not want to over tighten the flower frog, because then you'll most likely shatter or crack the base. And once you get it pretty close, ta-da, it holds on there. So this is a crystal flower frog that I picked up many, many years ago in a hotel room in Cambridge. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then I was lucky enough to pick up the 2-bun geisha with the pink peach blow base and the 2-bun figural. And the connector is exactly the same. It's threaded on the inside. You unscrew the top, and in 3 or 4 rotations, they come apart. So it's the base doesn't actually screw. I think Frank was mentioning this, doesn't screw onto the glass. The metal piece kind of tightens up and holds the figure together with the base. So kind of a neat piece. It's hard to find them complete, and the bases with their angles and sharp corners were just so prone to damage. They are very thin, and this figure is so heavy and thick. I'm sure if you weren't careful, you were going to set it down a little too hard and it would fracture the base. Julie, that's all I've got for show and tell this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you for sharing with us actually how that goes together, because I was trying to picture it, and I'm a spatial person and like to see things, so it's really interesting to see how it actually came together. Now, was there ever speculation as to why the early pieces actually came in 2 parts over 1 part? Was it a mold issue? Was it a weight issue? Is there any speculation as to why this occurred?
I'm just going to make up something.
Okay.
Jack was saying that these figures were marketed heavily to the lamp company. So the easiest way to market to the lamp company would just to have the base be a separate piece. So that way they wouldn't sell the bottom part to the lamp company. They would keep that, and they would just sell the upper part with the thread, and they would thread the flower holder down into the metal holder. That could be a reasonable explanation. Another explanation is that when Cambridge came out with anything initially, it was always really detailed and complicated and intricate. And the fact that these screw together, the base is so geometric, and I mean, it's just a work of art, this base. There's so many angles and facets. It just may have been a difficult piece to produce and consistently market this way. But that's the only base that the geisha came on. And the geisha was the only flower frog that had a separate base. So I'm probably going to go with my first answer, that if they were heavily marketing these to lamp companies, it would be easier to sell them as separate entities.
Okay, thank you. And just a question out there too, we've talked about these lamp bases. Was there one particular lamp company over another that purchased most of the Cambridge stock? That's just a question out there for anybody.
Actually, Julie, we've got ledgers with companies that Cambridge sold their planks to, and there's quite a few different lamp companies in that ledger.
Okay, thank you. I know it's just a question I have. I thought maybe someone else might have that too.
I do have some stuff to show if anybody wants to see it. I did email, but apparently nobody got it. So
Oh, I'm so sorry, Carmen. Please show what you have for us tonight.
I don't know if most of you know that my main area of collecting is flower frogs, and I have them from all over the world.
Ooh.
So I guess it all just depends what you want to see. Let's see, I do have a large collection of ovals. I think I have just about every color of flower frog, I hope. So let's see, one of my rare ones is the amber two kids frog in oval. And I have that in pink, white, and green. I have all the mandolin ladies. I have like the various, I have one that's looking front. The one that is looking to the side. And a more of a bent form. And then of course I have the greens and the satin and the emerald. I have the large Buddha with the base and the flower frog. Also the 8.5-inch crown Tuscan. And then I do have a satin eagle and an amber. I think somebody or no one has shown the gold crystal yet. And I also have a satin one in the drape lady. I also, if anybody's interested, I have the complete set of the Summit Bashful Charlottes with the ribbed bases in all the colors. Can you get me the azurite? Nope. Third. Trying to have Rodney help me here. Yeah. And then the one to the left of that. Yes. So they made them in the Vaseline, the azurite with the ribbed base. They also made one that's really hard to find. I think there's only about 10 of these. And this is with the ribbed base. And this is almost kind of like a slag color. So it's the moonlight blue, but it's also got, if you can see it, some white in it as well.
Carmen, do those pieces by Summit have the patent number on the underside?
Not really visible, but yes, it is there.
It is there. Okay, thank you.
Trying to check my other ones, and it's very visible in the Vaseline. Okay.
What else have I got to show you? Well, I guess, we can get up and walk. Hold on a second. Can you get? Sorry about that. Now I'm back. This is another one. This is foreign. As you can see, these are made to be interchangeable with different pieces as well. So the figures could be on a lamp or in a flower frog ring. They came with different bowls. I have most of my bowls downstairs because I just don't have the room. This is German. And then another really nice piece is the Walther sewn. And they made, I want to say, hundreds of different kinds. But this is a really nice one, very detailed. You can see all the different sails in the ship. And then you have like the waves on the bottom. And they're actually interchangeable with a couple other different flower frogs to the left. Way back to the left, the boy. And here's the base. And it has just a few flower frogs in a set of 3 and then 1. Would made to be sit in a huge float bowl. And that is interchangeable as well. And this is the Floatenspieler or Peter Pan, again by the Walther sewn. And this is Peter Pan with his flute. It's got Wendy here down on the side, and it has rabbits. Not sure if you can see them all around the base.
Wow.
They also did. Let me just sit on the floor for them. Grab one of the. One of my favorites is the Schmetterlings. It's actually a vase. Just anyone. With the flower frog on the inside. So this is the Schmetterling or the butterfly lady.
Wow.
And then the flower frog sits inside. But I have, like I said, absolutely hundreds of them. So,
Wow. That is amazing. And thank you so much for sharing those with us because, you know, we see our pieces all the time in Cambridge, but to see those pieces from abroad and in that last flower frog, where it was a totally different type of structure where I could see it would hold the stem the same way, upright, but inside, that was so interesting. Just out of curiosity, how many flower frogs do you think you have?
Of Cambridge? Oh boy. I'm afraid to count in front of my husband.
Oh, we won't tell him.
I think it's well over 100.
Wow. And how many in your total collection?
Oh, I have not counted. There is a ton. Maybe bring the fish and just grab the squirrel out. So there's pieces from Czech, there's German pieces, and the fish. So this is also a German, actually from the UK. This is from Bagley. And it's got a little squirrel and a different kind of bottom. This actually has a double ring. I don't know if they did that just because of the weight of the piece. And a matching squirrel bowl goes with it. It's very cute. And this is Rosie's. This is from Czech. And this is their leaping fish. And again, has the double ring on the bottom. And a matching bowl, if you can kind of see it, with the same fish pattern. And a lot of them, even their plinths, were made to match the complete set. So there are specific black plinths that go with the sets as well.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. It's always great to see what other companies have done and compare Cambridge to these companies, to look at their design. Squirrel, it kind of looks like he's on a stump, so you have to wonder,
Yep,
well, did
has
they
a little
see-
nut.
Yeah, did you see the eagle on the stump? And so that company copied it with a different animal. Are most of these that you have in your collection like prior to in the 30s, from the 30s, or do they span
They're
several?
almost all from the 30s. And the one thing about a lot of the foreign sets is what they were all destroyed because of the war. So they took all the molds and they were destroyed and then made into ammunition for the war. So they aren't reproduced at all.
Mhm. Very interesting. We actually just had this discussion about molds the other day. So thank you so much, Carmen. It's been very educational. And again, I think it shows that, obviously Mr. Bennett went several times across the world, over to Europe specifically.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to wonder, did we copy them? Did they copy this? How these all came about. So the history part of this is just spectacular. And thank you again for showing everything that you have in your collection. I'm sure that, we may just have to have you do a program of some sort sometime about these things that look similar to Cambridge. And I'm sure Jack will want to talk your ear off a little bit more later. So with that being said, I am now going to,
Julie, can I interject for a second?
yes, you may.
Because Carmen brought up something that I didn't really mention, but might be of interest to everybody here. She showed, I think it was one of the drape ladies or whatever that looked sideways. And there are a few pieces that Cambridge did where the head is twisted looking sideways. And for many, many years, it was just thought that possibly the worker of the day who is doing it just did it on his own, and it was not necessarily intentional. And then recently, and I don't recall how long ago it was, but maybe in the last year or two, as the Miami Valley group was scanning information and researching and everything, they actually found numbers for these. So that means it was actually intentionally done. So Cambridge sold those both ways. And with the head, they called it the twisted head, the drape lady, the two kid, and the mandolin lady all came both ways, with the head looking facing forward and then facing sideways. And the last thing on that subject is, I think, Carmen, you also showed one that was bent over. If you didn't, I think somebody did. And that was the same scenario. We weren't really just thought that wasn't necessarily Cambridge that did that, but they actually had separate numbers and did that intentionally. And the bent over versions were the drape lady, the rose lady, the two kid, and the mandolin lady. All four came in a bent over version. So I just wanted to pass that along since she brought that up. So thank you.
Yeah, I do have the bent two kid here.
Oh yeah.
Very interesting. Jack, going back to these records, what would you say were the percentage of, let's say, upright ladies and upright figurines versus bent and twisted heads? I know it sounds terrible, twisted heads.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I would the twisted and the bent versions are definitely not near as common as just the normal straight ones. I can say that, but we have very little records on what was being produced along those lines. So I don't know the answer to that. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you piping in about that, because I think many of us, when we're out and we're seeing some of these, we kind of, are those really Cambridge? Are they not Cambridge? Because there was never really any documentation on bent or turned heads or so forth. So thank you for piping in and sharing about that.
May I give one? I didn't know whether after that one that was just shown, she was magnificent. I only have one to show. It's Barbara.
Oh, thanks, Barbara.
I only have one that hasn't been shown. The others, I only have a few. And what I
Okay.
have is the seagull. This is a
Very
Cambridge,
nice.
isn't it?
Yes.
It's the only one I took everything out of it. So I just ran and got it because this is the only one I have that's different that nobody else has shown. And it's obviously crystal. And it's got the smooth round over here. And it's round. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. And let me go ahead and I am going to share my screen if I can find where I need to be. And hopefully this will work better this month. And let me go over here. All right, Joanne, you're up, girl.
Okay, so this is the heron and it's the smaller, has the rib base. And the next one, how do you change, Julie?
Well, you're gonna have to kind of depend on me. Can people see the new one? No?
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, okay. All right. Did you
This
see that
is-
one, Joanne?
The heron, I can't see, you know.
Okay.
See,
You can't see the new one?
no, hold on.
I can't either.
Let me go out. You can't either? Yeah, okay, let me go out. And this is the problem if I don't put him in a total screen. I got yours late and I couldn't do
Okay,
it.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Give me a second here. We'll get him up. Okay.
Okay, so this is the two kids in the green with the bowl. And we've seen that, so.
Okay, just give me a second to get through them here.
So the story is my mother collected Diane, my father collected Mount Vernon, but my mother went nuts and started collecting flower frogs. And this was in the day of the days
Mhm.
newsletter. And so we would get these weird boxes at our house with flower frogs in it. So
Okay,
we have
here we-
lots of flower frogs. So
Okay.
these are the drape ladies and the various colors.
Do you want to go through the colors for us?
Well, I don't know if I can tell you what the colors are. I think this is what, moonlight blue? I don't know. The guys can probably tell you. Emerald or light emerald, crystal. I think this one's amber, dark, light amber, maybe dark amber. These two, I think, are almost, they're different colors, but I think they're supposed to be the same color. And then that's the yellow, gold crystal, whatever.
Gold crystal, yes.
Yeah, probably. So, I mean, so I don't know. Must be the dark amber and these must be the light amber, but they're different colors.
That brings up a really good point. Does anybody want to comment on these color variations in the amber?
Les knows.
Well, we've talked a lot about that before. The colors that are most difficult to maintain from batch to batch are crystal, actually, and also pink and amber. And so it can just vary a lot from pot to pot.
And that's what this looks like. They're identical. They don't, they're not that much difference. So, all right.
Let me see what else I can find for you here. Just a second. You sent me so many pictures. I've just got to find. Let me see. Here's another one here. Let me see if I can share this one. My apologies. I got to get my act together here. I always practice, but it just doesn't work as well as when I'm doing it at home. Let's see this one. There we go. The seagull, such as Barbara's.
This is the seagull and the azurite. It's the same as Barbara's.
Okay. So I think the other ones, let me see if I can't get over to my other screen here and see if I've got all the ones that you had sent to me. Let me just go back to my main screen.
And I have some, but they're at my house and I have like a big 13-inch crystal and some other ones, but these are all of my mom's and dad's. So they're not, none of these are mine.
Well, that's all right. Let me get one more here. Just give me a second here. It's not going to where I want to go, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Let me see if I can. See if I can hold this one up.
That one's different, and then there's one other that's different. So this is the flower block with the drape lady. This is a different drape lady in color wise from the other one.
Okay.
And then there's a blue jay.
Okay, let me find that one just a moment. Unfortunately, it doesn't let me if I don't get him. What color was the blue jay? Oh,
Crystal.
there he is.
Yeah. And I think that one's different.
Can you see that?
No.
Oh, wait a second. Let me go back and share just a minute. It's operator error, obviously. Oh, there we go. Let me share the screen here. And we'll go back to the blue jay, which is.
Okay, so it's the 6th one. There.
Is it blown up? It's blown up on my screen. It may just not be blown up on your screen.
It's not.
Okay, just a second. We'll get it.
I
Sorry.
think you've seen that in the 6th one. Is it the 6th one?
Sometimes it just takes a minute here. Okay, now I've got it. Give me a second here. Let me share. There you go.
So this is the blue jay. We also have the peg one that goes in the candlestick, but this is the flower frog.
Okay.
And so, I mean, and some of them you've already seen, so we don't really have to show them all, but. Oh, you know what? There is one. There's an owl.
And oh, that's right.
A
Yeah.
green owl. And nobody showed that one yet.
Okay, let me go get that one.
He,
Give me a second here. The owl is, what color was the owl?
He's
Oh, I
green.
know. Yep, let me find him. Okay, let me go back and share then.
so he's a little bit different than the birds.
Yep, give me a second. There, can you see him now?
So this is the owl, and I was told it was Cambridge. I don't know, you guys. It doesn't have the same base, but
Comments on this one for
Not Cambridge.
not Cambridge. Okay,
okay.
not surprised.
Okay. All right. So let me get back. Let me see. I think I've stopped sharing the screen. Yes. Okay. So that is, I have, everyone has now shown everything. We did have a question from Michelle.
Actually, I have some, Julie.
Oh, great. Thank you, Les. My apologies.
Are you ready? Oh, you're ready for me?
I am ready for you.
Okay. So I got a couple of things. I collect only flower frogs in opaque colors and blue. You know, we don't have room in our houses for everything, so I don't collect others. Frank showed this, the small draped lady earlier, and Al and Sally showed the small draped lady in ivory. Now, they are early colors from the 1920s. And like Carmen mentioned, most of these flower frogs are from the 30s and the colors. Now, for these draped ladies in ivory and bluebell from the 1920s, the larger draped lady only has the scallop base. They don't have the smooth base, the number 2 base. The small draped ladies have the smooth base. And when you're out shopping and looking, there's probably 10 of the tall drape ladies in ivory and drape and bluebell for every one of the small ones. So it may well be that the smaller drape lady was introduced later with the smooth base, and that would explain why there's way more of the big ones with the scallop base than the smaller ones with the smooth base. So moving on then with my flower frogs that are opaque and blue. This one is a bit notorious. It is the ebony one. Now, the story, and of course, we have to be careful with our stories, don't we? But Lynn Welker has shared often that one of the workers in the factory loved ebony glass. So for special events for that worker, they would present him something made in ebony that they normally did not make in ebony. And that supposedly this came from a worker's home in Cambridge in ebony. It was in the previous Cambridge Museum before we got the new one. This drape lady, this rose lady is the one that Jack showed that was photographed by Miami Valley. And it does have that iris decoration. I don't know of another one. And just again, when you're out shopping, this popped up in a small mall just across the Minnesota border in Wisconsin. It was one of those small malls, you know, you walk in there and you kind of can tell they got a problem with the toilet, with the odor, and this thing was in there. So you never know. You just have to get out and hunt. You never know what you're going to find. Another one with another decoration they put on the rose lady. This may be a little hard. It's got silver band here, silver barrette in her hair, and then enamel flowers. So they did some decorations on the rose lady. And we assumed that those were, well, the iris definitely was done at the Cambridge factory, and probably that last one was as well. Another one that's blue is the two kid blue in satin. Now, I've noticed tonight during discussion, some people say satin, some people say frosted. And among collectors, you can use either word. I tend to usually say satin, but I think occasionally I say frosted. And I think that among most flower frog collectors and nude stem collectors, we tend to say satin more than we say frosted, but either term will work. Another one that I've got here is the turtle, and this one is in Crown Tuscan. And they really differ dramatically in this dome. So I was just, you know how it goes, you're just reading stuff. And I looked at that patent for the turtle, and it explained that they had a rack. There's kind of a ridge here, a rack that they set it in while it was still warm, coming out of the mold, and then it would sag. And that would explain the different amounts of dome. Now, those very early ones are completely flat, but the patent originally was for that one. So again, the amount of dome probably is not a accurate predictor of the time period that they were made. The last thing I'll cover is that there's been so much confusion on these moonlight blue bashful Charlottes. And thank you, Carmen, for pointing out that the Summit ones, the bigger one, that the Summit got that mold. He did not, Russ and Joanne did not take out the patent number underneath. That was something I was curious about, and I didn't have one at the time I wrote that reissues article. The small one here, we know that Cambridge actually put these ribs on, and there's been so much debate about whether these were made by Cambridge or if they were made after they left Cambridge by Imperial. And our current thinking is if they have the patent mark underneath, that they probably were made by Cambridge. Now, I've got another one here. How about this? Crown Tuscan satin with the ribs, but there's no patent on the underside. And so a lot of people have said that the ones made by Imperial were hollowed out and did not have the holes. Well, it's obvious there was a brief period of time when Imperial was playing with this mold and making these in some odd colors, but there's been other odd colors that have popped out. So the best of our knowledge at this point is the way to best determine if it may have been by Cambridge is if it's got that patent impressed or in the mold on the underside, but a lot we still don't know. And the Moonlight was definitely made with the smooth base as well, and I've got one of those in my collection. So we'll just keep looking, trying to research and see what we can find out and share. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Les. And really a great point is some of the things you brought up in your reissue And, there's some things that we just don't know yet. And hopefully with some of the research the Miami Valley Group is doing, maybe some of that will come to light. We hope so anyway. But going back, we did have one question, and that was from Michelle McGarry. And she asked, how do people use your flower frogs? Can anybody share with us how you actually use them today? Any takers on that one? No takers?
I use mine. I use mine in a cheese and crackers. Oops, somebody else. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I have used our flower frogs for several tablescapes at club meetings.
Okay, thank you, Sue. And Barbara said you used it in cheese and crackers. Anybody else?
Yes.
I'll clarify my question a little bit. When I have a couple that are the same as people have shown, and whenever I put flowers in them, they're not getting water underneath them. So I've played around with some ways so that there's more water flowing. So I was wondering, that was really my question, is if people have used them so that the flowers sustain the time that they're healthy and pretty.
I'd suggest you use distilled water.
Yes. Has anyone actually used them to use them for actually what was their intended purpose for flowers? I mean, I know that I haven't personally done that. It depends, I think, probably on the size of the flower, and I'm sure they didn't make foam at the time to also, use as an oasis underneath of these. I've seen more of what I would call the steel pinned flowers that seem to soak up a little bit better, but because they hold open the stamen of the flower, or basically the flower itself and the stem of the flower, it holds up in there, and some flowers just require that. Any other comments to this question by Michelle? Okay, none heard. So that pretty much, unless anybody has any other questions. Oh,
Julie?
Alan, yes?
I have a question for Les and/or Jack. I have a flower frog that's light amber that I was told was Madeira. Do you know if Cambridge actually made flower frogs in the color Madeira?
I'll kind of chime in a little bit about that, Alan, and that's a great question. Somebody had the two different kind of maybe shades of amber earlier, and I was wondering if they might have had a Madeira. There is no actual documentation that we could come up with that Cambridge produced them in Madeira, but in inspecting certain examples such as your own, they really do look like Madeira, and the time period would be right. But as you all know, that Madeira is very close, could be to a different batch of amber. Yeah. So it's really hard to say. On the flower chart, we decided to put Madeira on it just because after inspecting a number of different examples, they really looked like Madeira. So we put that on the chart as existing, but there actually is no documentation per se. So hope that answers your question.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Julie.
Yes.
I periodically see the crystal drape lady in a lamp with a shade over it and some questionably tasteful flowers that are part of the whole thing. And I remember Lynn or somebody saying way back that was put together that way, but do we know who did that?
There was a woman, as my memory, Nancy, I think you probably got the same story or filled in the same information from Lynn. There was a woman somewhere, located somewhere in the country, that made those. I'm pretty sure that's the story on it. So it wasn't a one-off. She made quite a few of them.
Yeah, I've seen them repeatedly, but can't understand them. I guess would be my term.
Okay, Freeman, are you there?
I had a question.
Oh, Greg, yeah.
We've only seen really one or two, at the most, yellow flower frogs tonight. And I didn't know, and I guess this is captured on Jack's chart, but they made drape ladies. Was the drape lady the only one they made in gold crystal and or mandarin gold? Did they make it in both colors? And was that the only flower frog they made in a yellow color?
You're correct. The only figure of the flower frog that was made, it was the small drape lady in gold crystal. There were none made in mandarin gold whatsoever. So,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, since you brought that up, I will mention something else too. We haven't talked about, and that is the color that collectors refer to as champagne. I was waiting for somebody to possibly bring this up tonight, but one did not surface. But champagne is a color that collectors refer to, and it's a gold crystal. It's a light yellow color, but it's not necessarily consistently even throughout like gold crystal might be. There's no documentation that Cambridge produced this and as a separate color. It might just have been a batch that came out. It was meant to be gold crystal, but it might have come out that way. You really don't know. But there is a distinct difference between ones that are called champagne and ones that are called gold crystal, basically due to the non-consistent color throughout. It looks like kind of a champagne type color. So, but that's all we know about that. So, thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, I know many of you joined after we began the beginning of our session tonight. So I'm going to call on David again just to refresh everyone's memory, what's happening next month and what we'll be discussing next month.
All right, thank you, Julie. It was very entertaining this evening. As I was monitoring at the bottom of my screen, we had as many as 32 cameras this evening, which is always very exciting to see the strong participation that we continue to have for Zoom and Tell each month. Next month, Les Hansen is going to be leading a program on Charlton decorations. The Charlton Decorating Company purchased glass from Cambridge, most of it being Crown Tuscan. I know there was some crystal and there's maybe some ebony. I'm going to leave that to Les to answer all those questions for us next week or next month in February. So we'll be meeting next month. Watch out for your invitations via Zoom. Freeman sends those out about a week prior and then the day prior to the meeting. And it's going to be on Charlton decorating. So if you have a flying lady bowl or a nude comport or a shell comport or something that is decorated by the Charlton Glass Company or Charlton Decorating Company, or if you have something that's decorated and you're just not sure which glass company or decorating company decorated the piece of glass, we can try to help you out, answer those questions. So Julie, that's all I've got this evening.
Okay. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see everyone all the time. Thank you again so much for sharing your glass. I mean, I always learn something every single month. I think this is wonderful. We look forward to a whole new year in 2023. It's hard to believe we've been doing this now for I don't know how many months, but I surely look forward to this every single month, and I hope the rest of you do as well.